Let's get smarter with the help of our lead-off panel of experts. Tim O'Brien, Bloomberg Opinion Executive Editor and author of Trump Nation, The Art of Being the Donald. Cynthia Oxney, former federal prosecutor in the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department and former New York prosecutor and civil rights attorney Charles Coleman. All right, guys, we have a lot to cover. I didn't even mention the debt limit meeting, which I got to be honest, I have been at work all day long, and I thought that's what we were going to cover tonight. We will get to that later in the hour. Cynthia, let's start with Donald Trump. It's actually a mixed verdict. The jury did not find him liable for rape, but they also came out with a very high dollar amount that E. Jean Carroll wasn't even looking for. What's your reaction?
I think it's a great verdict, and not even necessarily that mixed for me. I mean, they found him to be a sexual predator, and they found that basically what the jury said to Donald Trump is, you're a liar, because he came to them through that deposition and said, I don't even know this woman, I didn't do it. And they have returned the favor and said, we don't believe you. And so that's an important message from this jury to Donald Trump. We think you're a liar. It's also not only just a victory for E. Jean Carroll, it's a victory for all sexual assault victims because, you know, I've tried a lot of these cases, and what they really want is for, if they're going to get dragged through the mud, to get a feeling that someone's going to believe them. And what this jury has said is, yes, you were dragged through the mud, and we're going to give you some money for that, frankly, but we also believe you. And that's what rape victims need. It's been a tough year, you know, in the post-Roe world, and women are out there hurting, and sexual assault victims needed some validation, some hope that they would be respected and listened to. And that's what this verdict does. I think it's a great verdict, not just for E. Jean Carroll, but for everyone.
E. Jean Carroll was listened to. She was believed, and she's found some level of justice. Charles, what's your take?
Well, I think that what we're talking about with this case, Stephanie, is the affirmation of what a lot of people knew. We knew that Donald Trump had no aversion to respecting women. We knew that Donald Trump had no aversion to violating women's rights. And so this not only affirmed that, but it went further to affirm the fact that we also knew that Donald Trump had no aversion to lying. And this is something that the jury has now held him accountable for, to the tune of $5 million or over $5 million. And it's quite significant. I also want to point out, from a legal standpoint, it was actually brilliant that her attorneys did not seek an actual dollar amount. Usually with these kinds of cases, you have a specific dollar amount in damages that's requested by the plaintiff. E. Jean Carroll made this very, very clear that she did not want money. She wasn't in it for the money. And so they didn't give a dollar amount. The significance of that is, number one, it bolsters the fact that this really was about her reputation and her credibility, and as Cynthia has already talked about, being heard and being believed. But number two, had they come in with a large number, had they said we want $50 million or $10 million, and, for example, only gotten a verdict with 3, people might look at that as somewhat of them falling short. The fact that that's not what happened only bolsters their case and what it is that they did very well. So I thought that that was a brilliant move by the plaintiff's attorney from a legal standpoint in this case.
Cynthia, how common is it for defamation suits like this to succeed?
Well, defamation suits that are attached to sex crimes cases are not common. So I would say this is a very unusual case, and fortunately, very well tried. You know, we heard a lot today about the appeal from Joe Tacopina, and I must tell you, I feel very confident that there won't be a problem with the appeal. This judge bent over backward to do everything that Donald Trump wanted him to do. When Trump announced when he was in Scotland that he was coming back, the judge basically broke every rule and said, okay, even though your lawyer said you're not coming, I'm going to give you more time. And that's pretty unusual right there. There was bad acts evidence that came in, but there could have been a lot more, and it was limited to 2. And the outcry witnesses are absolutely normal. So in this case, I think it will stand up an appeal, and I feel pretty good about it.
Mr. O'Brien, these guests know the law. You, my friend, know the Trump. I want to share what Andrew Weissmann said on our network earlier today. Watch this.
These are no longer accusations that he is denying. They are jury findings.
Trump's go-to move is always attack the critic and go on offense. But these findings are from a jury. So is this time different?
It is different. It's 6 men, it's 3 women, and they found him guilty of sexually assaulting the woman who brought this complaint against him. And she invariably was brave throughout the whole process. And I think, Cynthia's mentioned it a couple times tonight. She mentioned it earlier in a program that we were on together. And the overriding truth coming out of this is that the courts are evolving in a direction that makes it better and easier for women to try to go after their accusers. And I think it's significant in this case that the state of New York opened up the statute of limitations, enabling her to come forward on an incident that happened decades ago, because women take decades often to come to terms with the trauma they experience in sexual assaults. Trump is a poster boy now for that process. And he hung himself with his own words. He got filleted during his own deposition by Carol's lawyer. He is a loser in this case. I don't think he feels any shame or regret. He's incapable of that. He's a deeply damaged man who doesn't feel regret. But he is a loser here, and there's a jury verdict hanging over this. It's no longer someone else's allegations. It's no longer someone else's claims. It's a court case in which he was found guilty as charged.
He's a loser here, just like he was in the last presidential election. And the question is, Tim, are Republicans starting to realize that? I want to share some voices that we heard from today, Republicans on the Hill, their reaction. Yeah. Watch this.
So what's your reaction to President Trump being found liable in the Jean Carroll case?
I hope the jury of the American people reach the same conclusion about Donald Trump. He just is not suited to be president of the United States.
Senator Risch, can I ask you about this news about Donald Trump being indicted, or charged? If you're going to throw support behind a 2024 presidential candidate, does this verdict reached today have any impact on that decision?
It doesn't. I'm going to stay neutral.
I think it's a factor that gets to his electability. It's not a disqualifier, to Manu's point, at this point, but it's certainly not a check in the plus column.
Does it seem, I know I've asked this before, I know there's been countless scandals, and I've said, are Republicans going to turn on him? And that hasn't been the case. But does it seem like some Republicans could realize that this verdict is not ideal for a 2024 candidate?
Well, Republicans like Mitt Romney, but the fact is that
Mitt Romney's always felt this
way. And my point is that, Lindsey Graham came out in defense of him. I think most Republicans will say Donald Trump was unfairly accused, and he's being unfairly targeted because he's trying to take down the administrative state, and he's looking after the interests of Americans in the heartland, and these are just libs out to get him. But the reality of it is the party of law and order is making excuses for one of the most criminally negligent person to ever occupy the White House. And they don't have the integrity or courage to stand up with him or against him, because he still has a sway over about 30% of the Republican base. And that makes him a power play in the primaries, but it doesn't get him a national win as president. And that's the bind the Republicans are in. They don't want to go against him because the political reality is difficult for them in the primaries.
Something Donald Trump hates besides losing is money, paying money to other people. Charles, I heard today from a lawyer that said if there is any judge that will compel him, that will force him to pony up the dough, it's Judge Kaplan. You think he's going to pay?
I think he's going to do everything that he can to avoid payment. And I think that that's something that Carol's team will have to really be on around collecting this judgment. I think that the judge in this case can make it easier or more difficult. As we know, Donald Trump has been at the head of a very convoluted, Byzantine, almost criminal enterprise as it pertains to how and where he moves his money. And so I fully expect for him to cry broke and at the same time, miraculously and very hypocritically profess himself as a successful businessman to some of the potential voters that he's trying to court in the 2024 election. But that notwithstanding, it is not always easy to collect these sorts of judgments. And so it is a long road ahead for Ms. Carroll. I do wish her legal team the best. As they have now gotten a verdict, they should be able to collect the judgment. But I do not expect that this will be without any challenges.
Cynthia, new topic. George Santos now facing federal charges. We don't know the details, but what are you going to be looking for when we do get more?
Well, I'm guessing that these are campaign finance violations. You know, he loaned his campaign about $700,000, which is somewhat miraculous because he was broke. Yeah, right. I'm looking to find out how we got that money and whether or not it's just straight up fraud or there's some other campaign finance violation. And I'm also looking to see whether or not the FBI interviewed him and he lied to the FBI numerous times, and there are 1,001 charges, which would be even easier to prove. So I'm looking for those 1,001s, and I expect I'll see him.
Charles, what do you think he's up against legally?
I think he has a number of different problems on a number of different fronts. I fully expect that on the federal level, they've done their research, they've done their homework, and they know that what it is that they've charged him with is pretty much airtight. But I also think he has to be concerned about what may still be going on with the Nassau District Attorney's Office, who is continuing to look into state charges that he may be facing. There's a possibility that he might face the same sort of charges around campaign finance violations that Donald Trump is facing in New York, simply because if he fundraised on the notion of certain lies or used lies to get money for the purpose of ultimately, padding his coffers, those can be very, very problematic issues that will also land him in court locally. But I also want to step back for a moment, Stephanie, and really look at the fact that, look, this is not normal. We are in a space where we are talking about a former president who has been now found liable for sexual assault and defamation, and a United States congressman who has been federally indicted and may be facing additional charges at the state level. Beyond the political implications for anyone's party or anyone's elections, the fact that this is where our democracy is should be of extreme and great concern for all of us.
File under. This is not normal. Tim, Cynthia, Charles, thank you all for breaking it down.